Welcome to the second video in the Familiarization series. I'm your host, Chris. If you haven't seen the previous Familiarization video, I'd highly recommend checking it out in order to see just how the system evolved throughout the years. In this video, I'm going to go over the revamped familiar system. To date this, I am recording this before the V215 update, so I'm currently unable to record in-game footage. There could be an updated version of this video guide as an addendum later if the situation calls for it. Before I begin, I'd like to briefly go over familiars themselves. Familiars are a system originating from Japan MS that allows players to summon up to 3 monsters to their side, which provide them with 2 lines of potential each, similar to how equipment provides 3 lines. These familiars go forth and attack enemies, but don't really provide much damage, so the appeal is mainly just for potentials and looks. Familiars are obtained through monster drops and booster packs, sold from either Roto's shop or through Cash Shop booster packs. Familiars have 5 ranks: Common, Rare, Epic, Unique, and finally, Legendary. Typically, anything above Rare will most likely not drop. When a player hovers their mouse over a familiar card, the informational tooltip will appear, giving you a brief look at the familiar. Now, let's take a look at a card of my own design to see what just goes on in a tooltip. And here we see a simulated familiar of Roto, the familiar manager. We can immediately see that this is a common familiar because of the gray gem and the narrow gray border. Cards above common will have these colors changed to better suit their rank. If you look closer, you can see that the nameplate even changes color. You might notice the little symbols on the right. While they don't really affect game mechanics, these will tell you the type and kind of familiar this is. In this example, Roto would be a machine type with a lightning attribute. As for the rest of the kinds, there's beast, devil, fish, human, machine, nymph, plant, reptile, and undead. For attributes, you have dark, holy, ice, lightning, fire, poison, and none. For some reason, none also uses the fire sprite. Keep that in mind if you ever see a familiar that definitely has no connection with fire. When in your inventory, this box will have a question mark on it, as the potential has not been revealed. In this example, I've given it a non-existent potential as well as all stats plus 2. Upon rank up, the familiar's potential is randomized to have one of its current rank and one of the rank below it. For instance, if ranked up to Legendary, Roto would have 1 Legendary line and 1 Unique line. At the bottom of the card, you'll see the familiar's attack and defense. Most likely, they'll all be at 1 when picked up. However, when you level your familiar by killing monsters around your character's level while they're summoned, those numbers may go up. The higher the def, the longer they'll be able to stay out and slow down the summon gauge's consumption. This will be touched upon later. Now, let's go into the actual UI itself. When you press the familiar hotkey or double-click on Roto in your Equipment tab, you'll be met with a UI resting on the Overview tab. Through here, you'll be able to see all 3 slots, the number of familiars you have, badges, the active potential and badge effects, and most importantly, the summon gauge. Effectively, the summon gauge is the life force of familiars. The gauge is tied to Roto itself, so if it goes out completely, no more familiars for the day. The good news is that there are ways to make sure that it won't happen. You can simply buy a familiar essence from the Roto shop which refuels the gauge, or wait until reset. The combined def of all 3 familiars go toward making the gauge go down slower. If the combined def of all summoned familiars is below 20, then 15 units are consumed per minute. Every increment of 20 total familiar defense will lower the amount of units consumed by 1, so for example, 20 def will consume 14 per minute, having 40 def will consume 13, and so on. Additionally, you can see the summon gauge represented by a buff icon up in the upper right alongside your other buffs. Let's take a look at that setup tab. Here, you can select which familiars you'd like to put in your team. You'll also be able to see which potentials will be activated with these familiars, as well as your badge effects. You can double-click or drag and drop whichever familiar you'd like to summon into your slots. Once you're ready, simply press save. I might want to add that in order to actually summon these familiars, you'll need to find the Summon Familiar skill in the Beginner Skill tab, and preferably have a good spot in your keyboard for it. If you're not seeing it, please make sure you've talked to Roto for the first quest and saved at least one familiar into your Setup tab. The Collection tab is a 3-part section of the UI which allows you to look at your familiars, fuse them, or extract them. The Info tab is where you would reveal a potential. Simply look for the familiar you just registered, click on the question mark block, press OK, and the potential is revealed for a 35k meso fee. If you would like to rename the familiar, you could do so by pressing the pencil icon and paying 2 million meso. On the right, you'll see your entire collection. If you have a particular liking towards a certain familiar, hit that lock button when selecting it. That way, you won't accidentally select it for fusion or extraction because it'll be removed from the possible choices. Sorting options include by rank, level, and the date obtained. Clicking them twice will do the same method, but reversed. If you're a brand new collector or casual user, you'll notice that you'll only have 100 familiar slots at your advantage. If you're on a regular server, you can add 5 slots with a familiar slot expansion via the cash shop with a maximum of 2,500 slots. You'd have to buy 80 of them if you're truly a hardcore user. The Extraction tab is where you go to get rid of your duplicate familiars that you don't want. Let's say that you have a whole slew of unwanted familiars. You select a whole bunch, put them up on the left side, and hit that extraction button, and then hit OK. You'll find yourself with a decent amount of points to spend on the Roto shop. The higher the rank of the familiar, the more points you'll earn per card. Here is the exchange rate. Fusion, unlike extraction, is the method of getting rid of duplicate familiars in order to rank up a single familiar. However, you will be needing multiples of the same type. Let's say you have a bunch of leftover boogies to get to unique. Since you're fusing a lot of epic rank familiars, you'll be going for unique in record time. Any rank can be fused, as long as it's of the same mob. In order to try and get an epic to unique, you'll need to ensure that your familiar is at least level 5. If I might take a second to derail this little lesson, as I've said before, familiars start at level 1, with attack and def starting at 1. As you train and obtain experience, so does your summon familiar. Typically, the max level of familiar can get to is 5. However, if you're in a normal server, you can purchase 2 familiar breakthrough cards in order to raise the cap from 5 to 7, but only if it's unique or legendary. When familiars level, their attack and def have a chance to go up in lower levels and will definitely go up in higher. As previously mentioned, the higher the def, the longer the familiar can stay out. Upon reaching level 5, a familiar can try to go for a rank up. In addition to leveling a familiar to level 5, you will need to have enough rank up points, or RUPs, for the attempt. Speaking of rank up points, here's a chart for the rank to RUP conversion. If you find yourself with a familiar that you know that would be impossible to rank up naturally, don't worry. The Fauxmiliar and the Suspicious Fauxmiliar act as a substitute which act as 30 RUPs and 15 RUPs, respectively. Fauxmiliars at this time are unable to be obtained. Suspicious Familiars, however, can be found in both servers through Roto's shop. Ranking up starts off easy enough, but at the end, especially for this example, might become a bit of a pain. Our level 5 epic Jr.Boogie has a 40% chance of getting to unique after spending 150 RUPs, or 50 epic Jr.Boogie familiars, to get to this point. If it succeeds, great! If it doesn't, the game will take away 50% of that rank up bar, leaving it at 75 RUPs, and you'll have to wait until reset to try again. If it does succeed, you'll have a unique Jr.Boogie. However, it'll be level 1, and if you're in reboot, you'll have to hope that the potential is what you want. Otherwise, you'll have to extract it and start all over again if you're not so lucky while looking for that coveted IED boss combo. If you're using a familiar that starts with a common rank, the process will probably take a lot longer. especially since you'll be starting from square one. The legendary rank is in a league all of its own. You cannot obtain it through fusion. You would have to use a whole bunch of red familiar cards on a unique familiar, or, in extremely rare conditions, have a legendary drop. The only one I'm aware of that actually does drop, for now, is Lotus. Good luck with that. If you're a regular server player and are not a fan of the potential, you could purchase a red familiar card, as mentioned earlier, in order to re-roll the potential and have a chance to get it to legendary. At this time, Reboot has no option for re-rolling. Also, there seems to be limits for how much boss damage an IED one could get in a team. If I'm not mistaken, the limits are roughly 120% for both. If you're curious to see what kind of potentials familiars can get with each rank, check out the Discord at the end of this video. Now, for the last big concept of the system. Badges. Just to be clear, these are not badges in the traditional Ghost Ship, Sengoku, or Crystal Ventus sense. These badges are the UI. Once upon a time, badges were once limited to 1 per character. However, the system now allows for 8 badges to be equipped at once. There are a total of 38 badges in GMS to collect, each of which can give you a bonus boost to go along with the familiars that you're already summoning. For example, IED, damage, HP, attack, magic attack, and so on. In this tab, you'll be able to see which badges you've collected and equip them by double-clicking or dragging them manually to put them in the slots. Personally, kinda reminds me of the V-Matrix. In order to actually obtain a badge, you'll have to collect and register certain familiars in specific sets. For example, the starter badge includes a red snail, blue snail, green snail, and a shroom. To see the requirements for other badges, click on the List tab and click on the one that you're interested in seeing. On the bottom right, you'll see a list of the familiars that you'll need to register for it to unlock. When you register them, they'll be colored in. When you've collected one badge, you'll receive a special quest on the left bar that will unlock the second slot after a small conversation with Roto. In order to unlock the third slot, you'll have to collect a total of 10 badges. For an avid hunter, this shouldn't be too much of a task, but it might be a bit daunting for a beginner hunter. No rush though. If your rotor runs out of space for new familiars, you could easily register a familiar and extract it so it'll count. Unfortunately, some badges have familiars that are only obtainable from booster packs, as certain mobs aren't available for hunting anymore, such as lupins or the entirety of Florina Beach. More information about these badges can be found in the Discord mentioned at the end of this guide. Badge potentials, like familiar potentials, also have limits. In this graph, you'll see the maximum values that these badges can have. A full list of badges and what they can do can be found in the Discord. Finally, we arrive at the last tab in the UI, the Shop tab. Click the Shop tab and you'll bring up the Familiar Shop. In this shop, you will have a choice of 3 items to purchase for Familiar points. The Familiar Essence, sold for 300 Familiar points, may look like a gas canister, but it will refuel your summon gauge by 50%. Roto's Familiar Booster Pack Coupon. Sold for 2,000 Familiar points, this coupon will give you 1 basic booster pack per day, so hopefully you'll land something real good. And lastly, the Suspicious Fauxmiliar for 5,000 Familiar points. As described earlier, this item will grant 15 rank up points to any familiar. It's useful if you're rolling with something that's hard to obtain duplicates for, but don't count on it too much. That's it. I hope this guide wasn't too confusing for you, but I assure you that this system, once you get the hang of things, should come second nature to you in about a week or two. Granted that the system should stay up for that long, hopefully longer. If you're interested and want to learn even more about familiars and even chat with other familiar hunters, I would like to personally invite you to the Familiar Room Discord, which can be found right here, or in the description of this video. I try to keep this Discord as an up-to-date database on everything related to Familiars, whether it be potential pools for all ranks, badge potentials and what mobs to find and register, the history of older versions, you name it. Additionally, I encourage all Familiar hunters to flex their teams, potentials, ideas, and whatever else. Also, one last thing. I'll be trying to stream my experience in badge hunting if you were curious to see just how easy or difficult it might be to obtain them, alongside other Familiar-related nonsense. I'll be at twitch.tv/axchris. Hope to see you there one day. A big shout out to the Oozling for giving me pointers and helping me edit this monster of a script, as well as a big shout out to you for watching this all the way through. Thank you.